experience that 75 minutes without a device, they're happy. Yeah? In fact, there are students who have come and told me, you please ask me to put the device on your table, yeah, so that I cannot access it. I said, no, I am not a police woman. Yeah? You have to also do something. I will only remind you. Yeah, I will only remind you. So that is one thing that I have done, and I am extremely vigilant of it. Like, it's not like I say it and then 40 minutes later, if I see somebody using a device, I will never look the other way. I will stop the class. I will not say anything. I will stop the class and I will keep staring at the person. Yeah? Till the point when others in the class will say, stop using the device because we are not moving forward. Yeah? So that is one thing that I have done, and of course that doesn't make for a great, being a fun teacher, but I think it's also our responsibility not just to be fun teachers, but to make sure that they are also participating in the learning process. The second thing that I do is I use certain methodologies more than I used to use earlier in my classes. In my earlier lectures, I would typically have a case. I mean, you all know we like to use cases. I will typically have a case, and my 75 minutes will be planned to basically discuss the case. Over the last few years, that methodology doesn't work anymore. That methodology just doesn't work. Again, students are coming under that. They are unwilling to stay with the question for that long. They don't want to, they don't know very often how to argue a point unaided. However, these are important skills, right? So then if I recognize that these are important skills, then what should I do to actually help them to learn the skills becomes important. See, the case they will forget, the conversation they will forget, the theory we will teach will forget, but if they can learn some of these basic skills, that will help them. So one of the things I do, for example, is if my case is not very long, then I will, the first 10 minutes, I will think of an exercise which will allow them to review the case, or talk to each other, or discuss it with each other, or teach each other the case, or whatever it is. I will say, use ChatGPT, do a summary of the case, then I will allow them the device also. So it's always like this, right? So use the ChatGPT, use the summary, do the analysis, all of that in class for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, right? Which is their time to understand, to look at the material. And then I said, now put it off. You read it, you read, and then we'll do a question. Right? We'll do a question, we'll do a discussion. If I think students are not able to discuss well, then I will structure that discussion. I will say this part of the class will argue from this perspective. This part of the class will argue from this perspective. This will argue from this perspective. So what will happen is, again, in a way you are telling them that when you argue, whose perspective you take matters. Yeah? And then if I think that they are getting too stuck, right? Openness, flexibility, plasticity, taking another point of view are all important skills. So what I will tell them, okay, for the last 10 minutes you have argued from this perspective, now change. Now take another perspective. Yeah? And again, very often that will change how they will start to look at the material. Right? Now, is this a classic case discussion? It is. Yeah? In a classic case discussion, faculty doesn't do as much. But the classic case discussion has failed. It's no longer working. Yeah? Students don't stay with something for that long. They don't discuss, they don't prepare well enough. And also very often, today in the classroom, one of the things that we are finding is, and this is a real experience, 3 months ago, with a PGP student. I asked him, he said something, I said why? I think the World Economic Forum report shows that the Future of Work Studies report shows that more than 86,000 job roles will disappear and new 56,000 will come in. But which ones will disappear and what new will come in, nobody really knows. Right? And so in a way we are preparing students for a future that nobody really knows about. Right? So we have to recognize that whatever we do in the classroom, as they walk out of the classroom may be completely useless. Yeah? Because of the way the world is, because of the way the jobs are going to pan out and so on and so forth. So one of the key things that I think as a faculty we can do is, rather than focusing on do you know every theory and every word and every formula, are we preparing them to learn? So in a way, learning to learn becomes the most important meta skill rather than what they learn. Every one of us who's sitting here possibly is doing well because for whatever reason we were able to learn, right? At least I did not teach anything that I learned in my Masters or PhD. What I taught finally was something that I learned on my own. So the meta skill that I guess one had was how to learn. And therefore as faculty our focus has to be on the long-term goal has to be or the distant goal is am I teaching them how to learn rather than am I teaching them the material that we are teaching. And I think once we are clear on that, then how we look at the classroom, the engagement, the process can start to change. So one of the things I have started doing, and I'm sure many of you do, and I'll be very happy to hear that from you as well, is in my classrooms now I have a completely no device policy. Unless I tell them. So there are days when we will have the device, but on most days it is a no device policy, right? And I recognize that a lot of people are nowadays addicted to it. So they're addicted to the device. So in a way, as a professor, as a faculty in class, I cannot say, look, I made the policy, I told you the policy, you can read English and therefore you should know that you should follow the policy. I actually take some extra effort every day before class to say, look, devices have to be off and devices cannot be on your body, they cannot be visible, they cannot be touchable, they cannot be hearable. I mean, I make every day I have a new story to tell them, but the fact is that I start off in the first 2-3 minutes by telling them no device, right? Which means if they are found with a device during the class, then I have the right to ask them to leave or to take some action, because it's a contract that we form between me and the student. So I tell them, look, I will not use my device in class, you will not use your device in class. If you use, then I will also use. But if both of us use our devices, then what's the use of spending this time standing there, right? So in a way, that is the first thing that I've done, and I have come to this after sitting in multiple classes of my other colleagues where they don't make this request, and students other than possibly the first 2 benches, everybody is using the device. Yeah? And the device, the access is so huge nowadays that it's almost impossible to, if I have my computer on, laptop on, if I have my cell phone on, when will I get to a game and when will I get to an email and when will I get to a chat? I will use touch, right? So in a way, let's not do that. I know students in the beginning feel very upset about it. right? Because it's almost like taking away choice and agency from them. But